Have y'all ever thought about starting your own podcast but thought it would be too complicated? If your answer to that question is yes, let me tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to start a quality podcast. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from any device. And on top of that, Anchor is owned by Spotify, so you have access to a full library of sound effects, background music, transitions, and even full songs that you can add in. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it will hook you up with sponsors so you can make money on your podcast. It's literally everything you could ever need to start a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. What is up, everyone? It's the Raw Prospect Podcast, episode 66. Today we're going to do another full round one mock draft. And today is the day before the official draft, so it's going to be our last draft of the draft season. And joining me, as always, from Austin, Texas, the Stat King himself, Michael Ween. What is up, man?
What is going on? Thank you for the always so great introduction. I guess that nickname has stuck. You introduced it a while back, and it's just stuck, and I like it. So thank you for that.
I say it every episode now.
Yeah, it's become routine.
Right.
I am, like every football fan, super, super excited for tomorrow's draft and for Friday's. I usually watch the first round, the entire first round, and then most of the second and third rounds because it's just, I don't know, I love football. We love football. That's what we do. I don't really pay attention to the third day, but I check in every once in a while. But I'm really excited for this. Today, we're each doing our own version of a first round mock draft, whereas I think 2 or 3 episodes ago we did an alternate version of mock draft where we alternated picks, and we were doing that live on the podcast. This time we pre-prepared our mocks, and we're just going to go through each pick, go through each team, and see what we think each team should do. So let's not waste any more time. Let's do this.
Right. But before we get started, just one housekeeping thing I wanted to promote here. We do have one thing that we have on the Patreon. We have some content on the Patreon now. It's a round one mock between me and my friend Will, who's on the golf team with me. He's a Cardinals fan. We go through the full mock draft, make our picks together, basically. And if you're interested, it's over there on patreon.com/Raw Prospect Podcast. That link will be in the description. And if you do make it over there, it would be amazing if you'd consider supporting the show. But if not, it's all good. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and let's get right into this. You're here for the content. So I guess I can go first with my draft if you want. Okay, that works. Okay, so for me, first pick, I went Trevor Lawrence. No debate there, really. Second pick, I went Zach Wilson. And then before I reveal this third pick, I just want to
wait. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Maybe I have a suggestion. Maybe we do since it's 32 picks, maybe we do you do your top 5, and then I do my top 5, and then you do 6 through 10, and then I do 6 through 10. That type thing.
Okay. Yeah. That works.
You want to do that?
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. So keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
So my draft, it's actually it's a combination of what I would do, and for the picks that I think will happen, I also made those picks as well to add a little bit more of a realistic factor as well, because those picks will affect the draft board in a different way. So 3 here, I go Trey Lance. That's the guy I'm seeing a lot of reports saying that the 49ers are choosing between with Mac Jones, and I think he just has the higher upside. I mean, I personally would go Justin Fields, but it's up to the 49ers at the end of the day. Their scouts like Trey Lance, and that's going to be the pick. At 4, I go Kyle Pitts. The fact that Justin Fields fell, it made it a little bit more interesting, but I think Kyle Pitts is the pick, given that they pushed Matt Ryan's contract down the road a little bit, basically extending it out, and they can't really get out from under that contract for a couple of years. And so let's win now. Let's go all in, try to be a top 5 offense, and get a possible superstar right out of the gates. And then number 5, I went Penei Sewell. I'm seeing a lot more people mocking Jamar Chase to the Bengals. And I mean, I think they would be happy with either player they got, but I just can't see them getting past this top 5 without ensuring Joe Burrow's protection, because at the end of the day, that's what's most important. So Penei Sewell is the pick there.
Okay, for my top 5, spoiler alert, we have the same top 5.
Oh, okay, perfect.
But I have, of course, the Jaguars, number 1 overall, picking Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to go a little bit deeper here, just give you the notes that I have for each. For Lawrence, he's pretty much been booked to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft since, he came out of high school, committed to Clemson as a freshman and was playing as a freshman and led them to the national championship game. And 36 starts at Clemson. He went 34-2 overall. He finished number 3 in career passing yards, only about 60 yards short of Deshaun Watson. So if he had another half, he would have passed him. And he actually finished tied with Deshaun Watson for number 2 in passing touchdowns in school history with 90 to only 17 interceptions. So the touchdown interception ratio was also there. So he put up stats. He's got all the physical and mental traits you could ever ask for. He's got the size, the athleticism, the arm talent, the mental processing speed that you need, the intelligence, the intangibles, everything that you need. He's a lock to go number 1. Number 2, as you said, my mock is also a combination of sort of like what I would do, but also there is that realistic factor to it. And for the Jets at number 2, it's been said for about the past month or so that Zach Wilson is pretty much a lock here to go at 2. I've been outspoken. I do have my questions about him, but he put some incredible tape out this past season, which I think a lot of scouts are really impressed with. He shows an ability to throw from different arm slots. He's mobile. He can make quick decisions. He has a lot of transferable traits to the NFL, and I think he's the pick here for New York. I've voiced my doubts about him in past podcasts, so if you want to go listen to that, please do so. I actually agree. I do think the 49ers should take the upside pick and Trey Lance at 3. He's really kind of an unprecedented prospect. We haven't really seen someone with this type of skill and arm talent and, ability and mobility at this young of an age. But only 1 interception and 17 starts at North Dakota State, albeit against lesser talent, but still really smart player. He was asked to call a lot of his own pass protections in college. So I think, you're going to be asked to run a pretty complicated offense there with Kyle Shanahan, but you get to sit a year probably behind Jimmy Garoppolo. You get to groom him, and then maybe next year you move off Jimmy Garoppolo and you throw Trey Lance in there, and who knows? maybe you hit a jackpot with possibly the most talented, like purely physically gifted quarterback in this draft class. We said it over and over, Kyle Pitts. For the Falcons, if you're not going to take a quarterback and you're not going to possibly trade out of this position, I think their asking price is probably too high at this point. You should take the best overall player that's not a quarterback, and that's Kyle Pitts. Simple as that. He can play outside. He can play at tight end. He can do a little bit of everything. And now that you've extended Matt Ryan's contract, as you mentioned, and he's pretty much locked in for the next at least 2 years, I believe. It's going to be really tough for them to get out of that contract. You might as well ensure Matt Ryan's success. Give him all the necessary weapons he needs to go out there and compete. And then for the Bengals, protect Joe Burrow and the best overall tackle prospect in the draft. You can pair him along with Jonah Williams, play him at right tackle or left tackle. That's Penei Sewell. That's who they should go with at 5. That's the smart selection, although I won't be surprised if they do take Jamar Chase just because he did play with Joe Burrow and there's that familiarity there. Yeah, the obvious pick to most people would be to go with Sewell, who's young and has a lot of talent. So we have the same top 5, but I'm interested to see what you have for 6 through 10.
Yeah, this is where my mock draft gets a little crazy. Okay, so at 6, Miami, going to go Jamar Chase, get that true number 1 wide receiver, alpha. Will Fuller, they signed to a 1-year deal, but he has injury concerns. And also, they have different skill sets, so they won't step on each other's toes. Will Fuller is a deep threat, and Jamar Chase is more of a multiple, diverse type of receiver. He can do a lot of different things. And, of course, they have Devontae Parker and their slot guy. Can't remember his name. But I think adding Jamar Chase really rounds out their receiver group. And at 18, I think you can go tackle. And then number 7, I have the Detroit Lions taking Jalen Waddle. This was a tough one because you could go O-line. Obviously, in our last mock draft, I had them taking Rashaan Slater. But I think Jared Goff likes the receivers with the Jalen Waddle archetype. We see those small, quick receivers really do well with Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, those technician, good route runners. I think he goes in there, and I think they'll develop a chemistry pretty quickly, and he'll be the number 1 wide receiver for them for the next few years. So number 8, Carolina. I have them taking Rashaan Slater. I think he has I think day 1 he has the best pass blocking ability out of the offensive linemen in the draft. I think day 1 he's just super solid as a pass protector right away. So that's that. And then number 9, this is going to be really surprising. So I'm going to have a trade. So hear me out. It's not going to be the team that you might be expecting. So earlier I saw a report saying that the Saints were looking to trade up. And then later in the day, I watched that franchise guy's predictive mock draft, and he actually had the Saints trading up with the Lions at 7 to get Justin Fields. I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to have them trade up at 9 for Justin Fields, secure their future guy. And I think this team still has the ability to win. I mean, if they draft well in these next couple of years, in the next 3 years. I think that's their timeline to get back to where they want to be in the post Drew Brees era. I don't think you want to waste any time, especially since this draft class is just rare when it comes to quarterback talent. I mean, you look at next year's draft class, I don't think there's that many quarterbacks that are nearly as high to me as these guys in this class. I mean, obviously there's going to be breakout guys next year, but I mean, just the talent in this draft is just special, and you won't see a guy like Justin Fields drop in a normal draft. It's just the talent that this draft has that warrants a guy like Justin Fields dropping, and you got to take advantage of that if you're a team like the Saints. And another thing is Sean Payton, he has a lot of pull in that organization. And if Sean Payton likes a guy like Justin Fields and he wants to make that trade, I don't think the Saints would say no to him. He has that pedigree within that organization. And then another thing, I mean, there's always trades that surprise us. That's my last reason that I predicted this trade. There's always a trade that surprises. I mean, you look at a few years ago, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the Chiefs traded up from, I think, 22 or somewhere in the 20s to go get him, and it came out of nowhere. So it may not be the Saints, and it may not be to the 9th pick, but I think it's going to be some team in the 20s making a push, maybe someone that's unexpected that moves up and gets a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance. So that's going to be my 9th overall pick. That trade would be 3 first-round picks, by the way, and a third in 2022. So number 10, Patrick Surtain for my Cowboys. Pretty simple there. Cover 3 man. I mean, he's the perfect archetype corner for that system. Like a Richard Sherman type, long, tall, athletic. I think it's a perfect fit to go across from Trevon Diggs, especially since they were former teammates at Alabama. And I think that's a good duo to have going into the future.
Okay. So for my 6 through 10, at number 6, I think we agree Miami gets another playmaker for Tua Tagovailoa. The best wide receiver in the draft, that's Jamar Chase from LSU. He's kind of like a double-edged sword. You can use him in a lot of ways. He's got he creates fantastic separation in his route running. He's explosive. He's great after the catch. He's got that competitive toughness, the ability to go up and catch 50-50 balls. He's the pick here if a guy like Penei Sewell doesn't drop. I think they would consider that, but I think they go with Jamar Chase to get to all the playmaking that he needs. Because as you mentioned, a lot of those receivers that they do have, they're talented, but they have injury history and injury concerns. Detroit is a team that's hard to figure out at 7. You have like a hard-nosed, tough guy coach and Dan Campbell coming in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to build through the trenches and take Slater, who some argue is the most NFL-ready pass blocker in the draft. But I decided, you're Detroit. You're not really in a position to win right now. And you have a lot of holes. So why not trade out of this spot and, maybe acquire some more picks? Because you can still – this is a deep draft at a lot of positions. You can still get a very good player, in the mid to late first round that can help you right now this coming year and acquire more picks. So why not The rumors have been everywhere. The Patriots are looking to move up into the top 10 to get their future quarterback, and that's Justin Fields. So I have been trading the number 7 overall pick to the Patriots in return for the 15 pick and some other things. I didn't really go deeper than that, but basically a pick swap. The Patriot or the Lions probably get back, a 3rd round pick next year, maybe another high pick this year. I have no idea. But you get Justin Fields, a guy I'm really high on. Probably sits a year behind Cam Newton, but then becomes their starter in the very near future. I really like that for New England. And maybe it's not at 7, but I could see it happening. New England trading up a couple spots to go get a quarterback. And that's been voiced, for a couple months now, I think. So, and then Carolina, we agree they have to protect Sam Darnold, so they get Slater at 8. I think they'd be happy with that. Denver at 9 is an interesting one. They could obviously move out. I think they've been fielding some calls. A lot of different teams may be interested. And that Saints trade is interesting. I think you have Jameis Winston, you have Taysom Hill, but you get another guy like Justin Fields to come in and compete maybe. I don't know. I don't know how much they really give up, but it's interesting. It made me think a little bit. But for Denver, I think you go Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. Little do everything, off-ball linebacker, fast, speedy, side-to-side linebacker, good tackler. Pretty much has all the tools you want. There are some character issues, but I think he'd work well. And that's one position on defense. They are kind of thin, is that inside linebacker position. They're thin on depth there. I think it could benefit them to get a little bit younger. And then Dallas, you go the best cornerback on your board. And to me, the best cornerback is Patrick Surtain from Alabama. So that's my 6 through 10. So there you go.
Okay. I really like that Patriots trade to get Justin Fields. I think that's another fantastic spot for him, given that Cam Newton's offense that he's going to run is going to be very similar to the type of offense that he's run with Justin Fields. Very like short passing, and then every once in a while take your shot, power running game, even like quarterback runs. So I really like that there for the Patriots. So with that, I'll recap the first 10 picks for us real quick. Okay, so for me, it was Lawrence at 1, Wilson at 2, Lance at 3, Pitts at 4, and Sewell at 5. And that was the same for you as well. And then for me, it was 6, Jamar Chase to Miami, Waddle to Detroit, the first change in pick between us. And then Rashaan Slater to Carolina, Justin Fields to New Orleans, and then Patrick Surtain to my Cowboys. So number 11,
and I had the same top 5.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say I had the same top 5. Mm-hmm. Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Pitts, Sewell. And then actually the same top 6 with Miami taking Chase. And then I have the trade at 7 for the Patriots to get Justin Fields. Carolina 8 takes Slater. Denver 9 takes Parsons for their defense. And Dallas, of course, takes Surtain at 10. So go ahead and continue with 11 through 15.
Right. Okay. New York Giants. I'm going to go with Micah Parsons here. I think this is a really good fit. I looked a bit into their scheme, and they run a lot of multiple fronts. They like to change up their looks. And I think given the fact that New York might even move him around in different spots, they won't rely on him to play coverage every single play. They might even have him play D end on some plays. I think that's probably the best spot for Micah Parsons in terms of fit. I mean, I like his fit with Denver as well, but I think he'd struggle in coverage a little bit for their liking. But Micah Parsons, I think he's going to stuff in the running game. I mean, he's going to stuff everything. He has the amazing athleticism and instincts. He's amazing as a blitzer. And if you can figure out how to develop his zone coverage skills, then, I mean, you have all pro right there. You have a makings of all pro. So I think that's a high upside pick for the Giants there. I think he might have the role of maybe like a Isaiah Simmons from the Cardinals last year. Maybe they play him sparingly the first year, have him learn, and then second year, once he's in tune with the system, maybe developed a little bit more, you throw him in there as a starter. So number 12, the Eagles, I have this one as the Devontae Smith pick. Obviously, we had him dropping in our last mock draft, the alternating mock draft. But this one, I mean, it was between J.C. Horn and Devontae Smith. I just thought Devontae Smith gives Jalen Hurts the best chance to succeed. Obviously, the Eagles have a lot of needs, but getting the true number one wide receiver, I think that really helps round out their offense. And you can get some offensive line help later in the draft, maybe some corner help as well later in the draft. So I think that was probably the best value for them there. So number 13, I have LA Chargers going with Christian Darrisaw, tackle out of Virginia Tech. I mean, here's a guy who is just explosive off the ball, and he's going to be extremely effective in their outside zone running scheme. He's really good at clearing off space in a hurry off the snap, and that's exactly what you have to do in an outside zone scheme. So he's going to be a perfect fit. He might have some trouble in pass protection against certain skill sets, maybe some like speed rushers like Von Miller, but I think you can develop that over time because he has the athleticism to be able to handle those guys. And I mean, who can block Von Miller anyway? So, give and take. So, 14, I have another trade. I have the Miami Dolphins moving up to 14 with the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings moving down to 18 there. And I have the Dolphins trading up and taking Tevin Jenkins, the tackle out of Oklahoma State. It's not going to take much to move up. It's just going to be pick number 18. Their 81st pick in a future third. So I think that's a perfect fit for the Dolphins. I think with the tackle that they had drafted last year, if you develop him or maybe move him to guard, all of a sudden that line becomes a strength rather than a weakness. And then all of a sudden your offense is looking really, really good to go along with that solid defense. So I think that's a really good fit there at 14. So 15, this is where I have Mac Jones falling to New England. I think they're going to be really comfortable with this type of skill set. I can see them going in a different direction and getting a Justin Fields, a guy who can run, given the fact that they liked and brought in Cam Newton. But Mac Jones, his skill set, like I said, is something they're very familiar with, and his accuracy, his ability to read coverage and anticipate throws as well. I just worry about whether he was truly challenged at Alabama because, that team was incredible. And, I don't know if he was really put under pressure that much. And when the pocket was hectic, he was able to move around in it. I'll give him credit for that. But it might be a little different in NFL, and he can come in and sit behind Cam Newton. I think that's a good fit. And if Cam Newton doesn't work out, you throw him in week 7, week 8, like the Dolphins did with Tua, and that might work as well. So that's my 11 through 15. Hello? Ooh, looks like you're lagging. Oh, you there, bro?
Okay, so sorry about the little bit of delay, but for my 11 through 15, this may have been like the toughest stretch, 11, 12, 13, for me to decide. For the Giants, I got stuck because I already have Parsons going to the Broncos at 9, and he's probably the best like value pick for the Giants. I know they don't really actually need receive. This pick just went based off what I've read and what I'm hearing about the Giants, and I they're super super high. They've got he loves Jalen Waddle and he loves Devontae Smith. Here I went Jalen Waddle to the Giants. He's not necessarily he doesn't stand out for his size or I guess his seasoning as a receiver. There's still a lot of room, a lot of area for improvement, but he's a special athlete, sudden movements, quick acceleration, really speedy. I think he's a scheme versatile receiver. You can also use him as a guy in the return game on special teams. I think that could be valuable. That's just something I went with based off what I'm hearing from the Giants. I also considered J.C. Horn at this pick, but I have him going to the next pick to the Eagles at 12. I explained this. This is the exact pick I did for them in our last mock draft. They're facing a gauntlet of receivers and outside of this upcoming season. I explained that all in the last mock. But outside of Darius Slay, you're relying on a lot of in that secondary. Struggle to stay healthy and aren't super productive at that position. So you get a guy who can slot in day one opposite Darius Slay and help that secondary because they're going through the gauntlet this year. And I mentioned it last month, as I've been saying. The Chargers were the same. Darrisaw's the best tackle on the board at this point. You have to protect Justin Herbert. So you go ahead and take him at 13. 14, another pick that I had last mock, Aziz Ojulari to the Vikings, the edge rusher from Georgia. A lot of people like his upside, his speed, his athleticism. The Vikings were, I think, bottom 5 in sacks last year. They need a complementary pass rusher to Danielle Hunter. So I really like either maybe a Kwity Paye or Aziz Ojulari there for the Vikings. And then 15, Detroit, you traded out of 7. The Patriots traded up to get Justin Fields, and you get rewarded as the Heisman Trophy winner. Devontae Smith drops to you at 15. Really good value. Some people worry about his weight, but I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. Yeah, really good value at 15. Probably looking for a receiver at 7, but you acquired more picks and you still got potentially the second best receiver in the class in the middle of the first round. Really good value for the Detroit Lions at 15. So there you go.
Right. Those are some good picks right there. Obviously, our mock drafts shaped up a little bit differently, but This is turning out really well. But before we move on, I just want to clear up why the Dolphins would make that trade up to 14, because I don't think I explained that very well. So Tevin Jenkins, I first came across him in a draft video that Brett Coleman did on him. He's just violent at that tackle position. He takes pride in putting you in the dirt. I mentioned that in the mock that's going to be on Patreon. So he's just a violent tackle. He just mauls people in the run game. In the passing game, he's solid as well. But I think the value there is clear. I think he's just the best tackle available right there. And then the Vikings, I have something in mind for them at 18. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so number 16th pick, I have J.C. Horn going to Arizona. I think this is a dream scenario for Arizona. I think no matter what, at 16, they're going to get the guy they want, because from 7 through 9, you're either going to have from really 7 through 13, you're either going to have like a tackle and wide receiver run or a tackle and cornerback run. So either way, they're going to get the cornerback they want or they're going to get the wide receiver they want. So I think Arizona is in a good spot at 16. I saw a lot of mock drafts where they traded up and got a Jalen Waddle or a guy like that, but I think I disagree. I think they're going to get pretty good value at 16, and that comes to fruition here with J.C. Horn, who I have as the second best corner in the entire draft. So 17, Las Vegas Raiders. They need secondary help. They need offensive line help. But I'm going to go with Trayvon Merrick out of TCU, safety. Really good sideline-to-sideline range. He's a true free safety with a 4.3 40. He has the speed and range that they need. You saw so many times where they just blew a coverage or they just straight up got beat. They just don't have the speed in that secondary. Jonathan Abram is a guy who he's amazingly hard hitter and punishing hitter, but he struggles in coverage. So you need a guy next to him who is more of a finesse player and better at playing coverage, so that Jonathan Abram can do the thing he does best, which is come up and support in the run. So I think that's a really good fit there. And then 18, I have the Vikings taking Elijah Vera Tucker. I think you could go Ojulari there. But if you look at their guard depth chart, it is a absolute disaster. I think you put in Vera Tucker in there, and he's the best interior lineman in this class. And also he has the ability to go out to tackle if you do end up having injuries. So he's a versatile guy, and he's going to round out that offensive line for Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings might be able to get a D lineman in the second or third round. But if not, at least you have Kirk Cousins protected, because that's very important. And also this is going to help the run game with Dalvin Cook. And then so 19, Washington football team. I saw a report saying that they're all in on JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. He's a really good fit in terms of Ron Rivera's not only his mindset as a coach, but also just his scheme. We saw Luke Kuechly do the things he did for years, and I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he doesn't have the smarts that Luke Kuechly does at this point in his career, but he has the tools. He has the physical tools, and I think that's what you look for in a linebacker at this point in the draft. And he has the ability to turn into a star player to go next to Will Holcomb. So 20, this is where I have Caleb Farley going. Scratch that. I'm gonna pick Greg Newsome I think he's a better fit for the Bears scheme. And I think they need to make sure they get value. And I think Caleb Farley is a little bit too risky with his injury history. I think I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on this, but I think Farley has something going on with like the discs in his back, like pulsating out of position, which is the same injury Romo had late in his career. In those years where Romo, it seemed like whenever he got touched, he got injured. So that is a really scary injury to have at the cornerback spot. So I'm going to go Greg Newsome there. I think he's comparable in terms of talent, and also he doesn't have the injury concerns.
All right. Okay. So your mock is kind of making me rethink my mock. I think yours might be a little more realistic than mine, but whatever. I'm going to stick to my guns here. Mm-hmm. So at 16, this may surprise some people, but I echo your sentiment. People say the Cardinals really like Caleb Farley, but this really came down to, I don't know. With a back injury, it's football. You just really don't know that. That's a little bit. I think it's a little. He's really talented, but he opted out last year. He has this injury lagging. You just don't know. So for the 16th pick, and this could surprise some people, we obviously know the Cardinals aren't really in need of a pass rusher because they have Chandler Jones, who's one of the game's best, and they added J.J. Watt in free agency. But if you look at this linebacking core, and this may surprise some people, you have Isaiah Simmons, who you obviously drafted high last year and who's a really good player. And you have Jordan Hicks on that inside, who's coming back from injury and is kind of, I don't know, on and off the field, sort of inconsistent. You're relying on him, I think, a little too much. I think you inject some youth into this linebacking core, and I've heard rumors that the Cardinals really, really like Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. So that's what I'm doing here at 16. If you look at Collins, he's versatile. He was a unanimous All-American last year. You won the Bronco Nagurski Trophy for the best defender in all of college football. He won the Chuck Bednarik Award for the best linebacker in college football. And he also won the Lombardi Award, best college player regardless of position based on performance, leadership, character, and resiliency. He's 6'4", 260 pounds, with rare size and skills, versatility to play all four linebacker positions. I think you slot him in there in Arizona to go along with Isaiah Simmons, and all of a sudden your defense just that's scary. That's a scary front seven with J.J. Watt, Isaiah Simmons, Chandler Jones, Zaven Collins, all those guys. So I don't know. It's probably unlikely, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. Okay, so 17 for the Raiders. This was tough. I went with Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama. I think John Gruden, whether it's offensive line or defensive line, he needs to build this team from the inside out. And I think Barmore's tape, especially in that college football playoff, he was wrecking the game all over the place. I think I don't know. I think it's a possibility, given that the top three tackles are off the board. If they wanted to go maybe Vera Tucker there, I could maybe see that. But I went Barmore, and then Miami, same as last mock. I have them taking Vera Tucker at 18, just like you, I believe, but you had Minnesota. And then Washington. So, yes, Jeremiah Owusu-Karamoah makes sense. But I thought about this. Like, well, Mac Jones is still on the board, and your quarterback is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and you have Taylor Heineke, but you really don't have a guy for the future now at Howard. So why not take a chance, add him to the quarterback room to be groomed under smart and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Probably won't happen, but this is the draft. And then the Bears, they could go secondary. I could see them doing that. But for me, I went Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. And the reason is because, yes, you have Allen Robinson on the franchise tag. He's really good. You brought in, obviously, they brought in the quarterback, Andy Dalton, to serve as their starter for this upcoming season. It doesn't hurt to have I think there's some trade rumors on that other receiver. I'm forgetting his name. But it doesn't hurt to have as many weapons as you can. I know it's a deep receiver class, so they could technically wait on this position and probably go with the more needed position in the secondary. But I have Bateman. I really like Bateman. I watched a lot of him at Minnesota. Really good prospect. So, yeah. It's a weird 16 through 20, but that's what I went with.
Okay. Yeah. I liked it. I mean, Mac Jones, falling to 19, it might happen. If he falls past 3, I don't know how many teams would trade up for him or take him. So I think if the Patriots were to trade up, he falls past 15 and then boom, he's right there. I think maybe the Bears would consider leapfrogging the football team if that were to be the case. Maybe with the Cardinals or maybe with whatever team is willing to get some more picks. But yeah, I think that turned out pretty well. Okay. For my next few picks, Indianapolis at 21. This was tough. For my board, a lot of tackles have already come off, and I think I can get a guy in the second round with similar value. You still have the guy from Alabama, the guy from North Dakota State, Samuel Cosme. There's a lot of good tackles in this class. So for the Colts at 21, I'm going to take Aziz Ojulari out of Georgia. You explained this earlier. He's on a lot of mock drafts the number one defensive end prospect. He's just a really solid in terms of just aggressiveness and just he has the hustle to really be a really good run defender day one, and also has the tools to become a really solid 10 sack a season type of guy. So number 22, this is where I have Caleb Farley going. This was a really tough decision because obviously you have a guy like Asante Samuel on the board for me. But if I'm Tennessee, I'm trying to win, and I want the best player available, and I think I can get the most upside out of Caleb Farley. But that's only if I approve of his medicals. That's the only way I make that pick. But that's just me speculating. I think maybe the Titans are willing to take a chance on a Caleb Farley. At 23, I have the Baltimore Ravens trading up from 27 with the New York Jets and taking Kwity Paye out of Michigan, defensive end. So Kwity Paye, he's a speed guy. He has incredible just aggressiveness on the outside, just gets around the edge, has really good bend, and counter moves with that spin move and swim. Really solid edge prospect. I expect him to go somewhere in the 20s. number 24 pick, Pittsburgh. I had a lot of trouble with this one. I think it's hard to see a lot of value in taking a tackle right now, given that a lot of the really good tackles are off the board. And I think there's going to be a lot of really good tackles in the second round. So at 24, I'm going to take Creed Humphrey, center out of Oklahoma. I saw it. This is another one of those guys where I saw a film room from Brett Coleman. I think I may have sent it to you, but here's another guy who's just really physical at the point of attack, an amazing run blocker. I think I'm a lot higher on him than a lot of people, but I think he would be an amazing fit at number 24. I think maybe the Steelers could maybe consider trading down and getting him at like 34-ish. But given that this is just a round one mock draft, I'm just going to make the pick right here. And this is a guy who's just going to fit the Steeler way, a physical player. Really get back to that powerful running game. So at number 25, I think this pick might surprise some people. I had a lot of trouble with this one. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, you have a lot of options in terms of receiving talent. So that makes it really, really tough. But I'm going to take Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. I was thinking about maybe taking a guy like Pat Freiermuth, a tight end, to maybe give Trevor Lawrence another big target. But I think Elijah Moore, he's a guy who can separate at the line, like right off the bat, really quick on his feet, really good route runner. You put him in the slot, he'll have an immediate impact. So I feel pretty good about that pick there.
Okay. Okay. So 21. You have to protect Carson Wentz. Indianapolis and my mock, Tevin Jenkins is there, so you take him. He's a mauler in the run game. He'll just add even more value to not only Carson Wentz, but to Jonathan Taylor, who can run behind him and kind of that zone scheme that they'll probably end up running. I really like that pick. I would love it if he ended up dropping to Pittsburgh, but I really don't see it at this point. For Tennessee, it's really secondary or play. And for me, I went Elijah Moore, the receiver for Ole Miss. He's been mocked to Tennessee in a lot of mock drafts that I've been reading. He's a speedster, really kind of, I think, will complement A.J. Brown well, in that A.J. Brown's more of like that bigger receiver, the physical, not necessarily burner, but, physical 50-50 guy, powerful after the catch. And Elijah Moore is that home run threat that Ryan Tannehill could use. So that's that. The Jets, it's pretty much at 23. I mean, you have a ton of picks. You have a lot of needs. Caleb Farley is sitting there. It's tempting, so that's what I did. I went with Caleb Farley, talented corner out of Virginia Tech. Not sure that's what they'll do, but I think they will end up going defense with this pick, given that Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. And they're thin that their safety group is actually good, which is what I consider Trayvon Moehrig, but ended up going with the corner because that's where they're weak. They drafted Bryce Hall last year out of Virginia, and he looked pretty solid last year for them. He looked like he could play a role at least, whether it's starter or maybe rotating in on some downs. But I think they could definitely use another corner. So why not take a risk on Caleb Farley, given you have a ton of picks, and it's not going to hurt you,
Right.
Given that you're not in real position to win now. Now for Pittsburgh, it's interesting. for this pick, I went based off what I've been reading, and what I've been reading is that they're really down to 3 or 4 players. They're zoning in on 3 or 4 players here. If Najee Harris is here at 24, I'd say there's probably a 98, 99% chance that's the selection. They're really high on Najee Harris. They really need to find that next bell cow in the running game. Tevin Jenkins is another guy they really like. So if he dropped, I wouldn't be surprised if they went there. And then they also really love Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. Now, I know what you're saying. Why? I mean, the front seven's stacked. They did lose Bud Dupree, but I mean, Alex Highsmith looks like a really good pick from last year. They have a probably a top 3, top 5 front seven, but this is the Pittsburgh Steelers we're talking about. They love their linebackers. So don't be surprised. I'm not going to be surprised if they end up going Zaven Collins if he's on the board. But for now, just go with the safe bet. And I think right now that's Najee Harris if he's available. And then 25, Jacksonville, you add a pass rusher in Kwity Paye. Edge from Michigan, a guy I'm sure Urban Meyer watched a lot of, given that, he served as an analyst for college football, did a lot of Big Ten, studied a lot of Big Ten tape, I bet. So I don't know. He's right there. Why not go ahead and take him, add to that pass rush room? There you go.
Okay. So to recap, those last 10 picks, for me, I had J.C. Horn going to Arizona at 16, Trayvon Merrick at 17 to Las Vegas, Minnesota taking Elijah Vera Tucker in the trade down with Miami, Washington football team taking JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker, the Bears taking Gregory Newsome the second out of Northwestern. And then the Colts taking Aziz Ojulari at 21. Tennessee taking Asante Samuel. Baltimore taking Kwity Paye, edge rusher. And then the Steelers taking Creed Humphrey. And then the Jaguars taking Elijah Moore. But I actually really like that Najee Harris pick. I didn't know if I would pull the trigger on that, given that maybe a running back is in the second round, but I actually think that would be a good move for them. So I like that move. But if you don't want to recap just yet, I can go ahead and move on to number 26 here.
I'll go ahead and recap, and
Okay.
I want to add something to that Pitt or Steelers conversation.
Okay.
If Najee Harris wasn't there, I don't think the pick would be a running back. I think it's Najee Harris or bust. If they don't get Najee Harris, they'll wait until day 2 to get a running back. They're really high on Sermon out of Ohio State, like the 3rd round or something. If Harris isn't there, but we'll see. So for my, the last 10 picks, so 15 through 25. So I had Detroit. I had Devontae Smith falling to Detroit. The Cardinals taking Zaven Collins. The Raiders taking Christian Barmore. The Dolphins taking Vera Tucker. Football team drafting Mac Jones somehow. I don't know how that happened. Bears selecting Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. The Colts protecting Carson Wentz with Tevin Jenkins. Titans getting a speedster playmaker and Elijah Moore to go along with it's getting late, but to go along with AJ Brown. Sorry. And then the Jets getting a very talented player in Caleb Farley. Pittsburgh getting Najee Harris, and Jacksonville getting a pass rusher in Kwity Paye from Michigan.
All right. Okay. moving along here with 26, the Cleveland Browns. I have them getting Jalen Phillips out of Miami. I mean, I think you can't go wrong here if you're the Browns. I think you're between him or maybe Asante Samuel or a guy like Christian Barmore as well. Throw him in the interior defensive line. But the reason I went Phillips is because, I mean, Clowney's on a 1-year deal, and you may not want to rely on him too much given his injury history. And I also just think that Jalen Phillips is better than Clowney day one right away. I think Phillips has all the tools, and I think in a role where he's able to rotate and not having to play every single down, I think he could be really, really vital to a team. So number 27th pick, this is where I have the New York Jets, where they traded back with the Baltimore Ravens. I have them taking Rashad Bateman, give Zach Wilson a wide receiver. Rashad Bateman is a guy who, think what's that guy's name on the Niners they took last year? Oh, Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel or a guy like that who is amazing in the intermediate passing game down in the middle of the field and is just able to break tackles and create space. He's really good in that area of the field. And I think that's a really good fit with Zach Wilson. And then 28 is where I have Denver all the way down here. But this is where I have them taking Zaven Collins. I think this is an amazing fit for Denver. I didn't comment on your discussion of Zaven Collins earlier because I had a plan for him later and I didn't want to give away what I was trying to do. But I mean, Zaven Collins, he's 270 pounds, but he's not one of those guys that's stiff at the linebacker spot at that weight. He's actually a very graceful athlete. I did a little bit of research on him. He actually, as a kid, his mom put him in gymnastics, and that made him very light on his feet and fluid as well. He's not one of those high cut guys. I listened to this podcast, Bootleg Football, and he made a comparison in terms of just build, not exactly like play style and everything, but just in terms of build, just side by side, he matches up with Brian Urlacher. I mean, Brian Urlacher, he played rookie year at 265. Xavier Collins is 270. I mean, you look at 3-cone drill, 10-yard get off, 40-yard dash. I mean, it's all within really close to each other. So, I mean, if you're looking at a guy with that kind of potential and a Denver Broncos team who needs a linebacker, I think that's a perfect spot for him to go. And I think that's great value, especially given that you got 3 first-round picks from the Saints to get a guy like that. So moving along, 29, Greg Newsome. No, not Greg Newsome. This is where I have Asante Samuel going because I made a little bit of revisions to the draft. But yeah, this is where I have Asante Samuel going. I mean, obviously, the Packers, they need a corner. You can't rely on Kevin King. He's too slow to guard some of these quick, fast guys. I mean, you saw what Scotty Miller did to him in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that's unexcusable. That can't happen. You get Asante Samuel, a guy who, I mean, he just doesn't get beat. He has the instincts and he also has the smarts and the speed to stay with guys as well. A lot of teams worry about his height, but I mean, you have a guy on the other side, Jair Alexander, who is a very similar height and was very successful in that system. And I think they have similar skill sets, and I think having them as a duo will be really, really impactful for the Packers. So number 30, this is where I have Christian Barmore going to Buffalo. If you look at Buffalo, they have an aging defensive line. I mean, I cannot think of the names, but all of their D linemen are aging. Other than Ed Oliver, who has been underwhelming thus far in his career, and I think you put him in at interior defensive line, and I think he shores up. He takes the pressure off that linebacking core with what's his face, dreadlocks guy,
Edmonds.
Trey Edmonds, right?
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of pressure off of him to stuff things in a run. Barmore's gonna clog up lanes in there, and that's what you need in that system. So I guess I'll make the last two selections of the first round since I guess that would make the most sense. At 31, Baltimore Ravens, obviously they made that trade with the Chiefs to get this pick. I have them taking Kadarius Toney. I mean, there's a lot of different directions they can go in terms of receivers, and even they could even take Rashad Bateman at 23 and then take a edge at 31. It just depends on what they value more in terms of their selections. So that's that. And 32, Tampa Bay. For me, I think it was between Travis Etienne and Jason Owe, and I went with Jason Owe. I think Tampa Bay can get a guy in the third or fourth round who can round out that running back room, like a Puka Williams or a guy with speed. I think they just need they don't need like a true bell cow for this team. I think they just need a guy who has some speed and can catch some passes out of the backfield. A James White type of player, like I said. Shane Vereen, that type of player. So they can get that later in the draft. So I went with Jason Owe, a guy who can develop out of Penn State, high upside next to behind Shaq Barrett and JPP. So that's my first round.
Okay. All right. So 26 for me. Cleveland's sitting there. They went out and improved their secondary, which was their biggest hole in free agency this offseason, adding that safety from the Rams and a couple other pieces. I actually have a trade here. Cleveland has a loaded roster. It wouldn't hurt them to trade back a couple spots, and Green Bay is going to move up. You mentioned they're needy at corner. They need to supplement Jair Alexander with another shutdown guy, and Greg Newsome is sitting right there. So Green Bay moves up a couple spots to get Greg Newsome. They give Cleveland number 29, and probably, since it's only moving up a couple spots, probably only have to throw in maybe like an extra 5th or 6th round pick there. So I think it's a beneficial trade for both sides, and Green Bay gets their cornerback that they're looking for. Baltimore, I have them taking Jalen Phillips, like I believe you did. I just had Jalen Phillips dropping to them at 27 instead of having to trade up. So they did lose Matt Judon. They did lose Yannick Ngakoue. So they're in dire need of some pass rushers. And I think Jalen Phillips provides that upside, sort of like a Yannick Ngakoue in a way. So I like Baltimore with that. And then every mock draft, it seems that I do, I have someone who's projected to go high or higher, somehow dropping. And I have a Owusu Karamoa dropping all the way to 28. This probably won't happen, but the Saints get another linebacker. Doesn't hurt to have depth at that position. They need to get younger at some of these defensive positions. He can do a lot of different things. Just take him. I don't know. Probably won't happen, but that's what I have. And then the Browns at 29. Their roster just it's really, really, really good top to bottom. They don't have a lot of needs. They went out and got secondary and free agency. A guy like Trayvon Moehrig is still sitting there, but you just added a safety. I really struggle with this. Um,
how about
there's a guy
sorry,
that
go ahead.
there's a guy that I had going in our last mock draft, and Jamin Davis. I still think they could add some depth at linebacker in that middle position. So that's what I went with. But what were you going to say?
That's actually the player that I was going to suggest you take. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay. All right. Well, that works out then. I think if there's one weak spot on that defense, it's maybe now they can add depth at that middle linebacker position, get a bit more athletic. And Jamin Davis is a really good pick for them, I think, at 29, good value. Buffalo, yes, you mentioned their defensive line and some of their edge rushers are aging a bit, so I could see them going edge rusher here. But I also think they could go corner because I think they need to complement Tre'Davious White. And so that's where I have Asante Samuel going from Florida State to Buffalo at 30. 31, I'm more taking a receiver. This time it is Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver from LSU. They could go a lot of different ways, but that's just the guy I went with. Some people have him sneaking into the late first round. And then Tampa Bay, I wrote Tampa Bay selects who knows, because who knows what Tampa Bay is going to do. The roster is so entirely loaded. I thought about like a Gregory Rousseau or someone like that. You had who'd you have?
Jason Owe?
Yeah, maybe him too. I could see both those guys here. I didn't make a pick because I just don't know, but I don't know. They just re-signed Antonio Brown today, so their offense is loaded. I really don't see them taking a running back. I know we did that last mock, and it would make some sense, but I just don't see it. I don't know. Tampa Bay could go a lot of different ways.
Right. It's really just a luxury pick. It's just a luxury pick.
Yeah,
they can add depth to whoever they want.
It's a luxury. Exactly. So that's our final mock draft of this draft season. So tomorrow's the draft. It'll be fun, I'm sure. There'll be a lot of, hopefully, the Cowboys and the Steelers get who they want.
Right,
for the best
exactly.
For both. And it'll be a fun draft to watch as always. So.
Right, and I think with where the league is at right now, if you look at the respective conferences, you have the Chiefs, you have the Bucks, and you got a little bit of a gap there. And so you look at the teams like the Packers and the Bills and the Browns of the world. I think they're going to be jockeying for position. And I think this draft is going to be so important in terms of who comes out of the conferences next year, because you could see a team move up and go get a guy that makes that difference to getting to the Super Bowl. So that's good. That's what's going to make this draft so interesting, because it's going to be so unpredictable, because teams, their draft boards are going to be so varying from team to team, because they're going to value different things. It's just going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Aggressive nowadays typically wins championships. The teams that are the most aggressive, that take risks, the teams that tend to be the most successful nowadays in the NFL. And we saw it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just last year. They went out and they were aggressive in the free agent market. And so whether it's through the draft or free agency, if you're aggressive, good things typically tend to be on the horizon for your football team. People are saying this is, outside of maybe like the top 3, top 4, top 5, this is a pretty darn unpredictable draft. A lot of things could happen. Good players could drop. Who knows? So I'm really excited to watch. I'm going to probably watch all the first round, and then, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the second and third rounds, because
Right.
those are the guys that really typically come in and make the impacts right away. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for episode 66.
Right. Drop a like. Like I said earlier, if you want to go check out the mock I did with my buddy Will, that's going to be on Patreon, and link will be in the description. Thanks for watching. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell as well, so you can be notified for when we drop our podcasts. So, with all that being said, guys, peace out.